thank you everyone for attending this seminar. And I would like to thank all the organizers for inviting me to speak today in front of your audience. I'm very thrilled. So I'm going to talk about some unpublished gemmological discoveries I've made at the French National Museum of Natural Histories within the 10 last years. Discoveries that are unpublished for the most part and presented for the first time during an exhibition that we have done here in Paris. So the outline of this presentation will start with some introduction to what I'm going to talk about. 3 parts corresponding to the 3 parts of the exhibit. The first part of the exhibition was on history. The second part was on the present, from minerals to jewels. And the part 3 was on the future, that is the avant-garde. So I try after that to give some conclusion on what this experience has provided us in terms of spreading information of scientific and artistic interest. So basically from 2020 until last August, this exhibition we had in Paris called Pierres Précieuses in French was particularly focused on the knowledge around the gemstones. And thanks to that, we could present 550 artifacts, as you can see in the bottom of the slide right now, including 200 minerals, rocks, meteorites, and fossils. 150 gemstones, 200 art objects. So of course, a lot of jewels, but not just jewels. And all of that covering something like 100 varieties and species, you name it, of gemstones. So that was done with the help of Van Cleef and Arpels, the main sponsor of the exhibit. So I was the curator together with Liz MacDonald from the Cultural Heritage Department of Van Cleef and Arpels. So you can double check the hashtags Expo Pierres Précieuses to see the zillion videos, more or less, we have done during those events. And some of them are in English or in Chinese, but you can get automatic subtitles with YouTube, for instance. I don't know if the accent of the E on précieuse is important or not. It sounds that both are working. So when speaking about gem, most people think about movie stars and princesses, not me. So I wanted to highlight more the people behind the shelves, as we say, to the scientists, the artists, the technicians that are mostly forgotten to the public, to journalists, and to marketers. So, but unfortunately, as you know as well, we had the COVID pandemic, so we had an audience that was reduced by a factor of 4 due to lockdowns and social distancing. Still, we have succeeded to welcome 100,000 visitors, mostly from the Paris area because of transportation restrictions. But still, given the condition, it's nearly a wonderful success. So I will try to show you today those discoveries I could present around science, art, and sociology around gemstones through a guided tour of this past exhibition. So part 1 of the exhibition dealt with the history of the Earth, highlighting 7 episodes of our planet evolution. You see those Earth evolution sketches near the top of the slide, and they are illustrated by a selection of 30 specimens that are in the showcase underneath, mostly treasures from our vault and never exhibited before. So I won't have time to present all the beautiful treasures, but I will focus on one, and among others, a treasure from the Pan-African origin that happens 500 million years ago. And I picked several minerals from Brazil to Sri Lanka to illustrate this origin, and and more particularly, a lidicoatite slice from Madagascar that you see now on the screen. And I discovered in 2018 the amazing story of that peculiar tourmaline slice. It is simply the very first of its kind ever made. That was in 1902, and here at the Museum of Natural History. And I could even find the original 1908 black and white picture of it. And at this time, to do pictures of minerals was not so frequent. And as you know very well, those slices have become very world famous since that time. So that one that you see, probably not the most beautiful, but it's really the mother or the father of all of them that we know today, especially in jewelry. In the second section of the first part, I tried to show an outline of the history of savoir faire. So you see another view of the exhibition design, and we were very happy of it, in which we could present another selection of 30 hidden treasures from our collection never exhibited. So we'll focus on 3, especially that one that has never been exhibited so far. This is probably one of the oldest jewels, so I say that into brackets, known to date, age 90,000 years old. This is that shell for which scanning electron microscopy has shown in 2007 that Cro-Magnon has drilled it intentionally to be set with vegetable fibers, possibly within a hat that was used for ceremonies, probably by those people at that time. And so it was really an opportunity to show it to the public. In our collection also includes a masterpiece from the former French royal collections. So not everything is at the Louvre nor in Buckingham palaces. We also own some greater other piece as well, like this enormous 1.5 ton table. This is a very unique example for which I could recently retrieve after many years of research in archives in between Paris and Rome, most of its provenance. So to make it brief, because it's a complicated story, it was created by the Duke of Bracciano in 1602, using the intarso technique of pietre dure. That is a much more difficult technique as compared to the usual production from Firenze, from Florence at that time. That is the Comesso technique. Because basically this is one single piece of white marble weighing nearly 1 ton that has been inlaid one by gemstones. So it was impossible to make any mistake to finish it, to complete it. And this table was donated by the Orsinis to Cardinal Mazarin, and after that to the Sun King. And his successor and great-grandson, King Louis XV, gave the table to the museum in 1748, where it is kept until now. And to finish that section, I wanted also to show something completely unsuspected by the people, by the audience, the visitors, sorry. And I skip several of the showcases showing other type of masterpiece that you see in the background of this slide. But it's another recent discovery by me. It's so-called the Arbor, that is the tree in English, by Jean Vendôme, the father of contemporary jewelry. And this piece, in fact, was realized in 1976 for our museum, but was broken shortly after. I could eventually rediscover the dispersed piece throughout the drawers and reconstruct the tree with the help of the son of Jean Vendôme, Thierry Vendôme. Because unfortunately, Jean Vendôme, as you can see, left us in 2017. So it's enriched with hundreds of amazing gemstone, morganite, aquamarine, tourmaline, you name it, and also lydicoatite slices, some kind of polished mineral that Jean Vendôme liked very much. So the most interesting thing is that most visitors that came to a gemstone exhibit were thinking to see a lot of tiaras and necklaces and rings and etc. But they were not expected to see a contemporary art sculpture made out of gemstone. So it was a kind of nice finishing for this first section on history. Part two was dealing more with the current state of knowledge from mineral to jewels. And we try to explain to a public that has a very little scientific background, basically how scientists today are talking to artists through lapidaries and diamond cutters. My concept was to display objects with a vertical symmetry, as you can see in the slide, that is with a vertical progression from rocks at the bottom of a showcase to jewels at the top of a showcase for each given species. And notice that the showcases are low enough in elevation to be also visible for kids. It was very important for me that the kids, the people could embrace the rocks and minerals at from their eyes directly. So we developed a way to speak about gemstone formation through the geochemical cycle of minerals instead of listing the gemstone, for instance, in alphabetical order. So using simple words and reduced complexity, of course, this is a trade-off full of scientific oversimplification, and I apologize for this, but it was required for such a large audience with no specific scientific background. So I tried to simplify the geochemical cycle down to 7 mechanisms, ranging, as you can see, from pressure in the depth to metamorphism. And I tried to select and distribute 40 selected precious minerals among those categories, as you can see now. So for instance, when I list a diamond among pressure, I want only to say that pressure helps diamond to crystallize, among many other factors. And I'm perfectly well aware of that a diamond also need temperature, fluids, some water, some lack of oxygen. Also, some diamonds are related to life. And of course, a lot of diamonds are related to metamorphism. But this is pressure is the main factor that explains especially something of interest for gemstone, that is its special hardness and refractive index. So to start with that, the first of those 7 sections of part 2, mineral formed by with the help of pressure, so included among many others, diamond on the left and peridot on the right. We had 3 others showcases, but I don't have time to detail about them. Especially the peridot showcase was enriched with a magnificent sample from our collection, from the Paris School of Mines as well, and also from Van Cleef and Arpels. And you see those progression rising from the from the rocks, from the depth, and going up and up. You have more large crystals of increasing gem quality, and then up to the top to the jewel. And among others, we could show a 30 carat stellar diamond that was recently donated to us by Serge Fradkov in Geneva. And at the very top, some jewel, and you see here the diamond necklace of Queen Nasli of Egypt, created by Van Cleef and Arpels in 1939. On the right, right below the set of peridot, you have a 97 carat peridot and a 10 carat forsterite that are from our collection, masterpiece of our collection. And the peridot set is that from Peggy Rockefeller, VCA from the 1970s, sorry, 1970s, and it was purchased at Christie's for the exhibition by Van Cleef and Arpels. And to keep going, closer to the Earth's surface, a second factor of importance is temperature. That is, in fact, for the specialists, the Barwon series of mineral crystallization. And of course, we present quartz, as you can see here on the left, through its rock crystal variety. And on the left, I choose to show you the Spessartine garnet showcase. Not shown are the feldspar, represented by moonstones, and several fancy varieties of quartz, citrine, rose quartz, and rutilated quartz, and so forth. So you see again the progression from rocks to minerals, to gems, to jewels, from the bottom to the top, and some details on either the top of one showcase or more to the bottom of the other. The third section was dealing with fluids. That was meaning, in fact, to me, pegmatites, but it was a word that was not allowed by our museum marketers, despite it was created in our museum 20 years ago by Rene Ivy, but it was considered as too complicated. So I use a fluid instead, but I understand that is not the perfect word. Anyhow, this section included 11 showcases showing 5 beryl varieties, spodumene, and many others like tourmaline here on the left and topaz on the right. And just quickly focus on some special gemstones that you might appreciate, especially on that Brazilian imperial red, orangey pink topaz, 27 carats, and 65 carats Paraiba tourmaline that we all call together during the building of exhibit, the swimming pool. And also we had a special kunzite showcase that you see on the left because JP Morgan gave us, among many others, the Tiffany collections of gems in 1905 that was organized by Kunz himself, including, among others, the first ever natural and faceted kunzite from Pala in California. But the discovery is that we had an original catalog that was signed by Kunz himself of that collection. He donated to the museum. And this very important document, especially for the history of gemmology in the US, in France, and elsewhere, is very more important because they have never been published. So I was very thrilled to rediscover those magnificent documents, especially the signature of Kunz when he was in Paris. Fourth mechanism, that of water that helps precipitating minerals like opals and Colombian emerald. We had 2 other showcases on emerald, so we are not pretending to be extensive with that showcase, but at least we are talking about the way the emerald in Colombia are formed, that is with some quasi-hydrothermal circulation within shells. So much different as compared to Zambian, Brazilian, or Russian emeralds, for which another showcase was dedicated. And also the opals were represented by the many different varieties. And here I would like to focus because of a lack of time, maybe on the 2 jewels that were on the upper section of a showcase. They are contemporary creation from Van Cleef & Arpels just a few years ago, and we were very happy to have loans from 50 major international collectors that allow us to show not only historical jewels, but also really modern, so that the public can see that the modern fashion with the current design with jewels and gemstone is not always systematically a big stone worn by a princess or a movie star. It can be also some very poetical pieces like those 2 ones that you see now. But still, we had some historical jewels, and I can't resist to show you one of the 2 showcases with historical, with jewels with historical aristocratic provenance. Here you see jewels that have belonged, among others, by the House of Egypt. And on the other side, we had also jewels from the Aga Khan and the House of Baroda, with magnificent emerald, mostly from the Art Deco period of time. And you see a detail on that beautiful collar that used to belong to the Princess Fazli of Egypt. Section 5, dealing with oxygen. So I wanted to show you two of the 5 showcases, jaspers and eyes, that are some kind of oxidized varieties of quartz or silica, whatever, and also malachite, of course, a mineral from oxidation, zone in copper or outcrop. And what was very important is that I rediscovered in 2018 the very first tiger's eyes ever faceted by humanity. They were supposed to be lost in Netherlands, but in fact they were coming from South Africa in 1784. And instead of being lost in Netherlands, like some people say on the internet, they were simply forgotten in our drawers. And I could retrieve them several years ago. And just pay attention to that wonderful intaglio that was done at the as soon as the very first specimen of tiger's eyes from South Africa reached Europe. And they have that very innovative way of carving things. So it's not the regular cabochons and beds and eggs and boxes that we see today. They were already extremely innovative with that beautiful face of Jupiter, I think, with a kind of Roman style of carving, or maybe Italian Renaissance type of carving. But it was, to me, very well done. Look on the way they have worked with unpolished and polished area of tiger's eyes just to make this intaglio more spectacular. Life was illustrated by 6 showcases, including one on coral that you see on the left and one on pearls on the right. And on the right, more precisely, you see at the bottom all the Melo pearls from the imperial crown jewels of Vietnam, selected by the Nguyen dynasty since the 15th century. And it's the first time they are exhibited to the public. So we were very thrilled to be able to get them from a special honor. And getting closer to the upper section of this showcase, you see also pearls from the French crown jewels, a big double pearl close to the seed pearls that you see as number 4, that used to belong to Empress Eugénie of Montijo, the last Empress of France. And those seed pearls also compose that beautiful Art Deco bag, also set with platinum and diamonds from Van Cleef & Arpels, one more time, from the 20s, the Art Deco period of time. And close by, on the left, top left, you see a bracelet from about the same period of time as well, with 2 huge gray pinkish droplets, also fine pearls, so extremely rare in nature. To end the second section, the section of metamorphism was illustrated by 8 showcases. I tried to show you first 2 of them, especially rubies and sapphire, because they were as exceptional as all the others. And especially the one about sapphire on the left shows the largest sapphire ever discovered in Europe. That was in 2019 in central France, 91.5 carats. And we could save it in its natural state because most of them were all faceted so far. It was a big discovery of sapphires in central France 2 years ago. And above it, an Art Deco sapphire bracelet by Vesea, Van Cleef & Arpels, thanks to the generous loan from an important collector. And close by, a cashmere sapphire ring, also with a very unusual shape for cashmere sapphire, at least to me, with a pair and not just a regular rectangular cushion. And on the 3 ruby showcases that was dealing with that variety of gem, I selected one named Ruby from the marbles. That was including a 26 carat Burmese ruby of the best quality that appeared, maybe you remember it, in 2017 in Bangkok, named by Van Cleef & Arpels Ruby Flamboyant. And it was set then in a beautiful necklace, and the owner was extremely kind to let us have it right after for the exhibition. And we were also very in-depth to those wonderful collectors for such amazing loans. And we had a third that was quite interesting, probably not so spectacular for a lot of jewelers, but we were thinking about our friends in Asia. Unfortunately, they could not come to visit us, but we had a special showcase on jade, and the sample of importance are those two type specimen, I can say, of jadeite and nephrite. That's the one from Alexis Damour that he studied and on which he did his publication on the characterization of nephrite and jadeite, and more specifically a jadeite, because it's more rock than a pure mineral. And they were in our collection, and they were half forgotten, but it was a time to show them in that exhibit, and associated to 1,000 carats of imperial jadeite of the best quality, thanks to a loan from Hong Kong as well. And the best lavender jadeite set of beds that is known to date so far. And above 24 carats icy cabochon, all of that totally flawless. And to finish this presentation, on the third part, I wanted to highlight the society issues around gemstones, especially the role of a city like Paris, but also London, in the development of knowledge around gemstone at the turn of the 18th and 19th centuries. So clearly, gemstones are related to power instruments, as we say in art history, particularly since the Renaissance period of time, where this became even more prominent. But progressively, I came to the conclusion that kings started to collect gemstones also for their scientific interest. And next to the crown of Louis XV of France, you see gemstone of his grandson, King Louis XVIII, not mounted on precious metals, as one might suspect or expect, but on wood stands, as you can see, with labels. So they are becoming scientific objects as well. So this is the first time that those objects are recognized as such, and exhibited to the public. It's another recent rediscovery, and it's more a rediscovery of object as it is a rediscovery of the context in which they were, the gemstones were set on those wood stands. And in fact, at this time in 1800, the museum professor Rene became world famous as the so-called father of mineralogy, or at least one of them. And I rediscovered 3 major specimens from his collection, and especially first the Derbyshire calcite, from which Ivy has built all his theories on crystals in 1783. I could also rediscover the iconic wood model that Ivy created to illustrate his theories, that has been printed in many books. But it was that object that you see in the middle, that decrement model in wood, was considered stolen during World War II because of a fire, some fire. But in fact, it was completely hidden at the bottom of one drawer in our collection. So I was nearly to cry when I discovered it in a few years ago. But also I rediscovered the Russian emeralds that was redefined by IUI as a variety of beryl and not a specific mineral species, as it used to be believed until then. And that was also from that emerald that IUI and Vauquelin discovered chromium and beryllium. And from that, we could determine for the first time that the color of emerald is due, especially in that sample, due to chromium. So very intriguing discoveries, but it's not finished, because around 1816, we knew from testimony of René Juste that Henry Philip Hope, you know, the guy of the Hope Diamond, donated to the museum a collection of 10 gemstones. And I could rediscover them based on archives. So you see, they are not a big blue diamond, unfortunately. They are of rather low quality, but still, this has helped René Juste in Paris to construct his gemstone collection. And based on archives, I could exhibit all of that with some logic and some coherency. And then I could introduce all the work that IWI did on gemstone that is not so well known, especially after he has published in 1817, as you can see now, his treatise on gemstone. And to me, it's the first treatise in which gems are described as scientific objects for the first time. So they are explained with mineralogical properties, physical, chemical, crystallographical, and geological information with their as a function of a mineral species relative to the different varieties. So to us, it's really the birth of modern gemmology as we know it today. So I rediscovered also the historical stand to those gemstones that were unfortunately separated and pulled apart by my predecessors. And I could reset the gemstone on their original stand from the 19th century. And they were originally set like that by the Duke of Buckingham after his purchase of the IWI collection after IWI died in 1822. But in London in 1848, it was the time for the Duke to die, and it was an opportunity for the museum to purchase back the IWI collection after the Duke's death. And then for the first time, people could see that gem collection of IWI that has never been shown before, especially on their original stand by the Duke of Buckingham. And at the same time, as I mentioned before, King Louis XIII of France, stepbrother of Queen Marie-Antoinette, worked with Jacques-Louis de Borno, his official mineralogist. We don't know any portrait of Jacques-Louis de Borno, but he worked with Earl Greville to publish on corundum, and I could rediscover those corundum, either rough or faceted, and they are the kind of type specimen of that species, maybe. And we we were also very happy to show them again. And this gave me a rationale to explain why we have in a Museum of Natural History the French National Collection of Gems, for which I tried to retrieve an historical evolution. That's the way we exhibited 14 gemstones from modern times, little known to the public and sometimes not to jewelers as well, like this 3.5 totally flawless benitoite from California, but also this 24 karat alexandrite that are one of the top pieces of our collection. So as a conclusion, I try to deconstruct cliches often associated to gemstone and going well beyond gemmology by talking about mineralogy, geology, art history, literature, sociology, epistemology. I couldn't detail all of that, but you have an idea. And to show them that gemstones are, gems are diverse as world cultures could be diverse, whatever they are ancient to modern. I could rediscover many Rosetta Stones that helped me to give a rationale to those reasoning and to build a structured synopsis telling a lot about ourselves, where we do come from, what we are, and where to where we are heading to, because gemstones are also telling all of that about us. So no time much less to speak. We had 4 editions for the book that are already nearly exhausted, but if you're lucky, maybe you can still find some of it on the internet. And I would like to say merci to everyone, and I hope my English was understandable.
That's great. Thank you, Francois. You've got one question here. Shall I read it out for you?
Yes, I could read it out of interest. What percentage of items on display belong to the museum and how much is on loan? Well, thank you for this interesting question. We right now we exhibit only 600 out of the 3 million specimens that we have in the gallery. By 3 million, I include the rocks, the meteorites, the gemstone, and everything. So so only, like every museum, of course, only a very small fraction is exhibited right now. Not during the time of a temporary exhibit, we had nearly twice that amount. but most of the pieces have been brought back to the vault, unfortunately. And how much is on loan? Just a few. We have some pieces right now in Abu Dhabi, but very little. So we are hoping to be able to loan more pieces in the future.
Great, thank you so much, Francois. I think that's all of the questions that we had submitted. So lots of people just saying thank you so much, wonderful presentation. So thank you once again for your time today and for your talk.
Thank you to everyone, and I wish you the best health for everyone.